Welcome to Live Life Fearlessly, the podcast where we embrace courage, authenticity, and the power to transform your life. I'm Amanda Gervasi, a life, leadership, career, and relationship coach, here to help you break through barriers and create a life you love. Let's dive in and live fearlessly. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Live Life Fearlessly. I'm your host, Amanda Gervasi, life coach, relationship coach, mom, stepmom, entrepreneur, and someone who knows firsthand how messy, complicated, and beautiful a blended family really can be. So, yes, today I'm talking about a role that really doesn't get enough real talk. Like we sugarcoat it, how great it can be, and how easy it is, and how wonderful, and we can all be the Brady Bunch. Coming into this, I thought the same thing. I'll be really honest with you. But the struggles of being a stepmom, especially when it comes to teenagers, because I really do feel that it's a completely different playing field when you're jumping into a relationship and where the children are older and they are preteens or already teens. It makes a difference. And let me be blunt about it. It's really not easy. So, no, if you're going through this, you are not crazy. I'm going through it too. And I'm sure many of you are going through this. It's hard. And no, you're not alone. I am here with you, right? We're going to talk about the wonderful and the really hard parts of being a stepmother. Um, as most of you know, I'm already a mom of two amazing kids. My son, who's 8, my daughter, who's 10, going on 18. Um, but I'm also a stepmom to two beautiful teenage girls. One being, or will be, she will be 14, and the other one will be 15 in a month or so. And that's just like a lot of emotions and hormones and boundaries and just parenting dynamics in one house because we have such a wide variety of ages in the house, and each of the kids are just so different. And just, I think, between myself and my fiance, just trying to navigate it all can get a little crazy. But let's go right ahead and just rip the Band-Aid off and get real about what it means to step into a role that comes with really no rule book, no manual, and honestly, not much appreciation most of the time. That's usually the way I feel. But let's start with some truth. Being a stepmom is often a thankless job. Um, and it's something that you can't take too personally. But if you're like me, who's a people pleaser and I want everybody to like me, it can feel that way sometimes. You're expected to love them like your own, but not too much, right? It's just balance. And I love my stepchildren, but it's always this fine line as to how much I can and can't or shouldn't show, and am I overstepping? You're supposed to discipline, but only in a way that doesn't really step on the toes of their biological parents. And like I see that too on my side with my children and my partner. And it's this constant game of trying to figure out what is okay and what's not okay and what works and what doesn't work. You're there to support them and your partner, but you don't want to overshadow the bond that they have with their own kids. And again, being a mom, I see that it's just a constant balancing act that I'm constantly dealing with and struggling with to figure out what's okay. I mean, you're stuck in the middle constantly, and that's what I find. you're in the house, but you're not always in the inner family circle. You feel like a guest sometimes at your own dinner table, some nights, most nights when it comes to me. I mean, talking about dinner table, I'm going to give you the dynamic at our table. So, I'm quite talkative. My fiance's quite talkative. My children are chatterboxes. Okay. Dinner time is a show. It's, you know, who can be the loudest, who can talk the most. And then his children are like silent. Okay. Getting anything out of them is impossible most of the time. Um, and, at the beginning, we've been together for, over 4.5 years now. At the beginning, um, I just, I'm used to being, if you're from an Italian family, for example, we have dinner together all the time and we're constantly talking about our day and what's going on. And it's just like, it's a natural flow of conversation constantly. Um, but it was very different when we started having family time together and dinner time together, because I do think that's really important, because his children don't speak. And from what I understand, there wasn't this communal time where everybody comes together at dinner, um, and everybody kind of did their own thing. And so I get it from their perspective. They weren't used to this. But this is what I'm used to. And this is one thing that, I'm very keen on keeping. And, unless there's just something going on, we always have dinner together. I think that's really important. But ultimately, at the beginning, it was hard because they didn't really speak. And so I was constantly asking questions, and trying to get to know them and what's going on. And I would be given zero and lots of eye rolls and dirty looks. And it's really disheartening because I'm trying to get to know them and I'm not trying to play the victim here. But I was really, and I still am trying to get to know them. So I decided to implement what I call high-low buffalo. And high-low buffalo is, we go around the table and you have to tell everybody around the table a high about your day. Okay. Or it could be, something that happened over the past few days if we hadn't seen each other in a while. But your high, a low, and a buffalo. So a buffalo is just something random that you want to share with us. It doesn't necessarily have to be a high or a low. It's just something random that you just want to share. You want to bring to the table. It could have happened to you. It could have happened to somebody else. It could have happened in the news or in a show. It doesn't really matter. It's a random fact that you want to share with us. So we started doing that, which really helps. And at least it it encourages some form of conversation. But I'm telling you, even after 4 years of doing this, I still get the, do we have to? I don't have anything. Skip me. And I refuse to. So you have to share. It is part of, dinner time ritual. You need to share. I refuse to sit at a table in silence. I can't. It's awkward. It doesn't feel right. And ultimately, that's what happened at the beginning, where it just felt really, really awkward because my kids are just going on and on. I feel awkward then having a conversation with my partner, with my fiance, with their dad, because it's like we're excluding them, but they refuse to contribute. So this is kind of a way that I thought would help. And it does help, it helps bridge those long silences, although my kids are really good at that because they're just won't stop talking. But yeah, I mean, when my kids aren't around for whatever reason and it's just us four, it can be awkward because they don't really want to share anything. My fiance always tells me, it's not just you. They're just not really talkative. They don't share anything with me either. It's really hard getting anything out of them. But, I almost take it as a personal mission. Like, I want to get them there. I want them to start opening up a bit and getting more comfortable. It's been like 4 years and I'm not where I want to be, but it's like, it's baby steps. It's baby steps and slowly, slowly. And this is one of the things that I put into place. And I do feel, as much as I feel like they hate it, at least it helps us, get to know them. And I do think, at least on some days they do want to share, even though they pretend like they don't, or at least that's what I tell myself. I don't know. It's frustrating. It really is. Um, but let's delve a little deeper into what it's like being a stepmother to teen girls. And I'm really starting to see this with my own daughter now too, even though she's not a teen yet. Like I said, she's beyond her years, and of course, she's in a house with two teens or preteens that, um, obviously that influences her. But ultimately, teenagers already figuring out who they are. Like, it's a tough time for them. I understand that. As a teacher, as someone who was a teen once, I swear, I know my daughter and my stepdaughters don't think we ever were teens, right? We never went through what they're going through. Um, I do get it. Like, it's a tough time. You're trying to fit in and you're trying to figure out who you are. It's it's not easy. And then add in divorced parents. That's just even harder. And you're just trying to figure it out and navigate life. And you know, he divorced when the kids were a little bit older, right? It's been 4 years now, so they weren't quite teens yet, but they were older than my children. So they had already much more established, household, established dynamic. And so divorce happens and all of a sudden it really shakes things up. It rocks your world. You're completely off balance now. And so, throw in divorce, you know, potentially there's loyalty conflicts. I don't want to be too nice to her because then I feel like I'm betraying my mother. And I feel like that's a big part of the dynamic and I think the strain in our household where I think they do feel almost some guilt where I can't be too nice. I can't like her too much because, you know, poor mom type of thing. Or because we already have this dynamic, and I think I try to create this really healthy, uh, I think positive household that we're in. I think there's a lot of, guilt with that, where it's like mom doesn't have that same dynamic and these family things that we have going on. So I do think that part of the strain in our house does revolve around that. But, in any household, there's going to be some sort of, I think, loyalty conflicts potentially. And then, just throw in regular hormones. You don't know what you're getting most days with kids, and then there's social media and that drama that TikTok brings, because I do feel like, especially with his children, everything revolves around TikTok. I saw this on TikTok. TikTok said this. I need to buy this because, this influence, everything revolves around that, right? And boom, you've just got like a whole firestorm of shit that you're trying to navigate through and they're trying to navigate through, right? And you're just trying to find some common ground. That's what I find. It's just you're kind of tiptoeing most of the time and just trying to find, where can we connect on something so that you're not going to like blow up on me. Um and teen girls, they will test your patience in ways you didn't even know existed. One minute they need you and the next minute you're their enemy. And I see this constantly. I mean, one minute they're nice. They're nice to me and we can have a conversation, and the next minute you're asking them, how their day was, and they're giving you an eye roll and walking the other way. And I'm like, what just happened? It's confusing and it's frustrating. And I think we can't take it so personal, even though it's so easy to take it personal. How can you not? You're like, I'm just being nice. I care. I'm trying to help. Why are you giving me dirty looks like I've asked you the most embarrassing thing in the world, right? That's the way I feel most of the time. And it's hard because with my own daughter, if I get, an eye roll, I can, clap right back. And either, if she's really being rude, I can get upset with her. Or if she's just being, regular teenage attitude, I might just clap back with something sarcastic. And it's easier because we've built obviously that rapport with each other, right? Like she knows in that case, I'm not really being mean or upset with her, but I'm just kind of giving back what she's giving to me. But if I do that with his kids, which I try to sometimes, treat them, I always try to treat his kids like they're my kids. I try to treat them the same way. But again, it's that balance, right? But sometimes when I do that, they take it like I'm personally attacking them. And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to be silly with you or cute with you or sarcastic with you, like I do with, my daughter. But they don't always see it that way. It's like they're trying to figure me out too. And I'm like, I'm the same. I am always me. There's nothing to figure out. This is who I am. But I feel like they're looking. I think they're constantly looking to find those faults. And I really see that. And it's different, I think, with younger kids. Like I said, they've really, when they divorced, I think they were already figuring themselves out. They were, you know, in a certain family dynamic for like 10 plus years. So it's very different changing that. With my children, we divorced when the kids were really young. Like Alessio was only one, my son was only one, and my daughter, was like 3.5. So I mean, it was easier for them, I think, when we divorced. It just was a norm, obviously there's a shift in for them always, but um you know when we came into this dynamic together, and started building a family together, I think it was much easier for my kids to transition because most of their lives they've known, my ex and I have not been together. Like their father and I have not been together, but we've been very amicable. So they've always seen a very good relationship with us, just not together, right? So feel like once we joined families and we started living together, um, it was much easier for them. And my fiance is fantastic, and he loves my kids, and he's so personable with them. And my kids, like I said, because this is what they know for the most part, they've bonded with him so easily. And so there hasn't really been much strain for him. Lucky him. Right? For him, it's like been easy peasy for the most part because my kids are great with him and he's great with my kids. But there's definitely strain with his kids and me. And I get it. Like I do understand it. Teenage girls, and, you know, even though I met, their father after the fact, it's like I'm the evil one that's disrupted everything, right? I feel like that's the way they look at me. And much of the time, um, even if they don't actually think I'm evil, I think they like me most of the time. I don't know. I don't know. Teenage girls are really, really hard. And if you're in this situation, I think you understand. Um, but I think going into this, I always thought this is so wonderful, and I'm going to be so close with them, and I'm going to impart like, we're going to be like girlfriends. I think I went into it thinking like we're going to be girlfriends. Like they're a little bit older, and I could teach them to do like makeup and hair. And we go shopping, and it's going to be great. I wasn't looking ever to go in thinking I'm going to be their new mom. Um, but I thought, I can be a mother figure to them, and hopefully we can be friends. Like, I really was hoping for that. And I went in with that attitude, and I still go in, I'm still, have that attitude, but I look at it not quite so, with rose colored glasses at this point. I think I went in with this, like, it's going to be so great and they're going to love me and I love them and everything is great. And, now it's like you're navigating, and, I think sometimes your instincts aren't always right when it comes to this, because it's not the same. They're not your kids, right? And so it's a lot of trial and error and figuring out what works and what doesn't work and what they're comfortable with and what I'm comfortable with. But here are some survival tips, that I want to impart on you that, help me, but that I still need, I still need to remind myself of. But so let's go into some tips. Number one is don't take the bait. Okay. Let them vent without always correcting. This is where sometimes I, fall victim to, because I want to help. I always want to help, right? And sometimes kids just don't want your help. Let them vent, let them make mistakes. And this is something that I'm learning too, is it's okay. Let them figure it out. They're going to screw up. They're going to do the wrong thing. And sometimes that's just the best way for them to learn, because you intervening, they're just going to push away even further. And that's what I noticed is the wall keeps on coming up and going higher and higher. Um, and so I've learned to take a step back and not get so involved, you know. And I think it's been helping. Um, but yeah, don't take the bait. I know we want to as mothers, we want to help, but sometimes you can't. And it's okay. They will be okay. As long as they're not going to endanger themselves in any way, they will be fine. Be the steady one. Let them see you don't shake easily. Um, this is something I feel like I've always been pretty good with, but at the same time, I'm super expressive, and I'm sure sometimes you can see it on my face, and I don't mean for you to see it on my face, right? So be the steady one. They're going to push you. They are going to, I think they want you to crack. And so just try to be as steady, level headed, try to be as positive as you can with them, so that they can see that they can trust you, that they can rely on you. Because I think sometimes it's a bit of a test. They want to see how much they can push you, and you just got to be there for them. Respect their privacy, but like don't completely disappear. You want to stay available. Um, and this is again this balancing act, right? Because I like having these conversations with them and getting to know them, but I think it's figuring out how far is too far. And again, it's different because my daughter and I are much more open, and she shares a lot with me. And so sometimes I wish I had that with his kids too. Like I wish they would be more open with me. So it's really finding that balance. And I've had this conversation so many times, like with my fiance, with their dad, where it's like, you know, I want to be there for them and I wish they would open up to me, but I want to respect their privacy. So I don't want to push too much. And it can be frustrating. But I think ultimately, as long as you're always available, that's fine. That you're there for them when they need it. So try not to push. Don't be, you know, too cool, but be consistent and ultimately be you. And this is again something I constantly struggle with because again, it's this balancing act I'm always trying to be me. But I do find myself, sometimes not being 100% me because I'm constantly navigating what I think they need from me. And I think I need to stop doing that. I need to stop thinking, what do they need from me? And I will adjust for them and just be myself. And I think eventually they will come to me. I think seeing that consistency, seeing that I respect them and their boundaries, they will eventually come to me. And I need to be more aware of that. You know, it's, it's, it's not easy. Um, his younger daughter, really has a big wall up with everyone for the most part. It's not just me, so I need to stop taking it so personal. But she has a wall up with everyone, and she doesn't like sharing anything. It's really hard to get anything out of both of them, but particularly her because she gets really really defensive about everything. And so she trying to figure herself out, and she's a huge TikTok person and constantly trying to follow trends. And she bought a bunch of things for her face. Um, Anyways, she had a horrible breakout because of all this stuff that she bought. She didn't tell anybody that she bought it and put it on her face, and she had a really bad reaction to it. And hit her face, didn't want to show anybody, and like didn't want to go to school. And of course, I wanted to be there. I wanted to help her and see what I could do to make it better. And of course, it was like, no, you can't help me, and shielded away. And her dad had a talk with her saying, Amanda's just really trying to help and maybe she can help you, give her a chance. Right. So, um, she did. And it was nice. It was tense. And I know I could see that she was like ready to she was on the defense, like she was on the defense and she was ready to attack. And I think in that moment, I wasn't there to criticize and say all these things that she did wrong and why did she buy all these things and put all these crazy things on her face. And part of me was like, I just wanted to shake her and be like, stop doing this. You are beautiful just the way you are. Um, but I knew that wasn't going to work, even though instinct was like, don't do all this crazy stuff to yourself. But instead, I really took that step back and was like, put myself in her shoes. She's not happy with the way she looks right now. She needs to go to school. And what can I do to just help her feel confident and not worry about all these other things that, she shouldn't have done? And so I just focused on, you know, number one, complimenting her about how beautiful she is. And, just giving her some basic tools to help cover things up and some basic skincare routines moving forward to really help her and her skin and be healthy. And it helped. I think she was apprehensive, but I think she was waiting for me to come in and be like, you shouldn't have done this or this. Um, but I didn't. And I think that really helped. It helped just going in, just forget about all of that. And I just gave her some tips as to what she can do moving forward to help the situation, that she looked beautiful. At the end of it, I think she felt better about it. She went to school, she was okay. So it's not always easy, and that's what I mean. Sometimes you can't always follow your instinct and you want to. Sometimes you need to just take a step back and really put yourself in their shoes. Think about how you were when you were a teen. You think you know it all and you think everyone is against you. So, I really needed to think like her for a bit, and I think that's what's important is you need to sometimes put yourself in their shoes and how will they react? How do they think? What's their mentality like right now? Because they don't wanna hear what they did wrong. They just need it fixed and they need to, feel better. And so that's what I did. It was just, it was a hug. It was helping her in whatever way I could at that moment to make her feel better, and not worry about all the other stuff at that point in time. Um, but with all of that, and I know I've brought in, my fiance many times, let's talk a little bit about, the triangle of you, your partner, and their ex. And this is always something, from the beginning that we've really struggled with in our family dynamic. And I'm not saying my dynamic with my ex is, you know, amazing and fantastic, but it is a lot better because I'm so amicable with my ex. Um, it does make everything a little bit easier on my side, right? Not so much on his side, and this is where it really gets real. You can be doing everything right and you can still be treated like the villain, because if the biological mom hasn't fully accepted your role, it could be really, really difficult to navigate, and in this situation, I mean, I think she's accepted the fact that I'm together with her ex. But it's it's a real struggle. It's a constant struggle, as to, I guess, figuring out the boundaries as to where I can be. And I don't think that we're fully on the same page when it comes to that. And I think that makes it really hard, when you do have, you're dealing with an ex that you don't 100% see eye to eye. Her and I have never scrapped it out or anything like that. But I know there's there's a lot of strain, let's put it that way, between her and I. And, I made so many attempts to try to bridge that and to actually build some semblance of a friendship for the kids. Unfortunately, you know, like I said, unfortunately, I don't think she was ready for that at the time. I don't know if she is ready for that now. Um, but either way, it's strange to say the least. Um, And I never went in wanting to replace her. I'll be honest. I never went in. I do want to treat, and I always want to treat, you know, his kids, her kids, like they are my own. But that doesn't mean that I'm here to replace her. I'm not here to replace their mom by any means. And that's the honest truth. I want them to have a good relationship with their mother. You know, I don't want I wouldn't, if the roles were reversed, I wouldn't want somebody to be trying to replace me, as my kid's mom. And um I try to, have that boundary and maintain that boundary. Um, you know, and really you shouldn't want to, or unless there was a reason, but you shouldn't be going and trying to replace their mom by any means. I mean, they deserve that respect. You need to respect their boundaries as a mother. Um, but it's not always easy when, like I said, you're not on the same page and it feels like everything you do is wrong. And it's hard. You doubt yourself. You doubt yourself as a mother at that point. Like, what am I doing? But it's it's tough to navigate, but here are some tips that help me, I guess, navigate this dynamic. And the one thing, like I mentioned, is having boundaries. Ultimately, you're not their babysitter, okay? But you're not a ghost either. You don't just live in the house simultaneously with them. And so, as much as there's boundaries, it's that fine line of, I'm here, I'm here as a mother figure to you, I'm here as a friend, I'm here to support you and love you, but I'm not here to, you know, take over as your mother. You have a mother. And I really try that with them, that I'm not here to take over the role of mother, you know, and I don't talk negatively in front of the kids with that, negatively about her in front of them. I think that's important. Um, but yeah, it's navigating those boundaries and figuring out, something in between, just being there and, being a babysitter, because you don't want to be either of those, right? Um, Let your partner handle the drama with their ex. And this is one thing that I always do. I don't get involved. I mean, it's one thing that he and I may have conversations afterwards, but I don't get involved with his drama, and nor does he with mine. Although, like I said, with my ex, we don't really have a lot of drama, but we do handle those things separately. There may be times when I want to jump through the phone, but I don't. In the end, that's his relationship, and that's something that he needs to deal with. And I think it's really important. Do not get involved. As much as there's strain between her and um, I there's no physical or actual beef because I don't get involved in it. Right? That's his issue that he needs to deal, or that they need to deal with together. Right? So don't engage in battles that are not yours. Focus on your relationship with the kids, not have total control over it. I think is really important. So just focus on your relationship, build those rapports. Don't worry about trying to control everything. And again, this is something sometimes I can struggle with, because I do kind of want to control the situation and make everything really great. And sometimes you can't, especially in, blended families. You can't always control everything. But the one thing you can control is how you respond to your kids, how you can connect with them, how much time you spend with them. So focus on those. Focus on those things. Don't focus on everything else, because it's just not going to be beneficial for anyone. You know, it's just going to be hard if you try to control everything, and you're just going to push everyone else away, is what I find. You know, um, let's talk a little bit about guilt, because guilt is real. It's real as a mother, and then it's even more real, I think, when it comes to a blended family, and, you know, that guilt you feel as to how you're treating, your partner's kids. And there's that guilt for not loving them like your own. And I do, but obviously I don't, because they're not my own, right? But I always feel like I need to treat them like my own and give them everything that I give my kids. And I'm there for them in the same ways. And but there's always, I think, that little bit of guilt that they're not my own. Should I have that different feeling for them? I don't think so. And it's hard because, like I said, I'm not their mother. They have a mother, right? So because of that, it almost feels wrong to be too close. I, it's tough, right? I mean, those of you that are going through it, I think, understand what I'm going through. There is the guilt for wanting a break. And sometimes I do. Sometimes it's nice to just not have the kids here. And I feel guilty, um, especially at the beginning. At the beginning, when, you know, I went through my divorce and I had the kids the majority of the time at the beginning. And then my ex wanted 50-50, and my partner had already had 50-50 with his kids. And so at first I felt this huge sense of guilt. Like, I don't want to give up my kids. I don't want to not be around them. Um, and now it's kind of nice. I almost feel guilty for saying it, but I also love it. I love that time away from them. Not just my kids, his kids, both, they're always here at the same time. So our schedule is, when we have them, we have the Brady Bunch and everybody's here. And then when we don't have them, it's just my partner and I, which is really lovely to have that break. And I don't think you should feel guilty about it. It's nice to just have us, and for us to just connect with each other and not always be in mom and dad mode. But sometimes the guilt is there. It's like, oh, should I be doing more? Am I not being a good mother? But I think ultimately, when they're here, I try to give them all my attention. And we always try to do stuff with the kids. And so you shouldn't feel guilty. If you're putting, all of yourself into it when they're here, when you're with them, then it's okay to have a break. It's okay to connect with your partner without your kids. Don't feel guilty about that. Um, and with that, tie is tied very closely to feeling disconnected. So that guilt of feeling disconnected. And it's okay. You don't always have to be so connected with them. And with, like I said, my stepkids, sometimes it's tough because I don't always feel so connected to them. And when am disconnected because we're not connecting, for whatever reason, um, I feel guilty, like I've done something wrong, like I'm not good enough. Don't feel that guilt. It's okay. It's tough on them too. And I think you always have to remind yourself it's tough on them too. And they're figuring it out just like you are, right? You know, the guilt of not being enough. You are enough. Just keep on putting in that effort every single day. Just be there for them every single day, and you are being enough, right? It's not easy. And, let's not forget just grief, the grief of not being fully seen, of watching milestones from the sidelines, or of having your love rejected. Like, it's hard. I think we don't always, um, or not everybody sees that difficulty of, I don't always feel seen by my stepkids. In fact, most of the time I don't. I feel like they don't know who I am. Um, and I always hope that one day we'll get there, that they will kind of drop that guard with me a little bit more, and be a little bit more open with me. Because I really do hate watching from the side. A lot of the time I do feel like I'm on the sidelines watching, like I've planned a birthday, or I've planned a confirmation or a graduation for them, and I'm kind of in the background, and they're celebrating with their dad and their friends, and I'm just there. And it's hard when, you know, I feel like my love is constantly being rejected. But the one thing I can tell you is you can't take it personal. I know it feels personal, and there are so many times when I've cried about it. Um, but it's tough on them too. Like I said, they're figuring it out. They're teens. They barely know who they are. They're figuring themselves out. And now you expect them to figure you out. Um, you can't put that many expectations on them either. And so it just takes a lot of time and a lot of patience. So be patient with yourself. You know, it's not easy. You're allowed to grieve in this way. You're allowed to be exhausted. You are allowed to love differently. And that doesn't necessarily make you a bad stepmother. It just makes you a human one. It really does. And sometimes we need to hear that, or remind ourselves that we are human. We are not perfect. There is no, rule book as to how to do this the right way. Every situation is different. Every child is different. Every body connects and acts and reacts different. And so it's just it's a lot of patience, and it's okay to be exhausted. There are times when I am exhausted of just I don't know what to do, and there are so many times when I just cry because I had it so different in my head. I thought it was going to be so different. I didn't think it was going to be this hard. I I thought I would go into this and we would just be this happy family. And we are in so many ways. Like I don't want to say that we're not. We do a lot together as a family. And I think we have overall a really healthy, happy family dynamic. I think a lot of my guilt and I think my frustration and my own anxieties about everything come from my own personal connection with the kids, with his kids. It makes it hard. It's it's something that I am forever working through, I don't think it's ever going to end. I'm hoping that one day we can get to that point, and I think we will. I think we will, but it's something that our relationship is a constant work in progress, and it's just baby steps. Like I said, it's just being there. It's getting them, even just the basic essentials that they need, and just sometimes I do things and I don't tell them. Let's put it that way. If I notice they're out of something, you know, I'll just go out and I put it in their makeup case, for example. Or I notice maybe, you know, they need a replacement of a sweater that they really love or something. I'll just go out and get it and just leave it for them. And I'll be honest, most of the time I don't get a thank you. And it's hard sometimes, but it's these little things that I know they notice, and it's okay. It's okay. Because we'll get there slowly. I mean, just I think just don't take it so personal. I think just these little things, knowing that you have them covered, I think makes them feel safe and secure too, because they know that I have it covered. So even though sometimes they don't always say it, I do feel like they appreciate it and they know that I'm there to support them and help them, you know. But it's tough. It's tough. Those of you that are stepmothers, I think really understand, especially of teens, because like I said, it makes a huge difference. Um, but okay, let's flip this. You didn't sign up for perfection, right? You signed up for real love. So here's what actually helps, right? And we've talked about a few of these things. And the one thing is build your own relationship. And that's really finding small ways to connect with them. And maybe that's bringing them into the kitchen to help them cook with you, or going on car rides, or maybe it's getting into a show together that you all really like, complimenting their style. Start small and don't force it. That's what I really suggest. Be genuine, don't force it. Anytime I go somewhere, I always offer, do you want to come out for a ride with me? This is where I'm going. Most of the time they say no, but hey, sometimes they say yes and they take me up on it. That's great. I compliment them on their style. Oh, I really love what you're wearing today. I love your hairstyle. Make them feel good about themselves, right? Sharing a show, like we tend to do that as a family. We tend to watch shows or movies together, and that helps. And it's just these little things, I think, that over time will compile, right? And you'll build that closeness, right? Through these little connections. So when I'm talking about, trying to build that rapport, there's a few things that, I try to do and that we try to do as a family to really build a solid family dynamic. And other than, our high-low buffalo at dinner time, which I love, even though they don't always love, is our game nights. And usually Saturday night is game night. They get to choose a game, and usually amongst all of us, we have a very democratic vote as to what game or games, sometimes it's more than one, that we are going to be playing that evening. And we usually try to choose a game that's interactive. Not all the time, but usually we'll try to do something that everybody can get involved in. And it usually causes or creates some sort of excitement or silliness, or it forces you to talk. So if we're playing charades, for example, or Cards Against Maturity, those are always real fun ones. Um, Pictionary, categories. Like we have a list of different games that we like to play, and it really does help bring us together, and it connects us as a family. It's really during those times I think that I feel the most connected. I feel like we're most like a family because I feel like everybody's guard is dropped and we can just be ourselves. And it gives me hope. Like when I see that amongst all of us, that we're just having fun, it's really nice. We'll play rock band together, and that's always fun. And um if we go to Wonderland together, it's when we're doing these activities I find, like, so you forget to not like the person, I think, or you forget that I have a guard up and I need to act a certain way. So I really do suggest that if you're in a situation like mine where things can be tense and it's hard, try to alleviate it with like a silly game, with an activity that, they might fight you at first. And even with game nights, I think at the beginning, there was always a little bit like, oh, I don't know. Now everybody looks forward to game night. So even if there is some tense amongst everyone, it's like game night happens and everybody forgets it and we're all in a good mood. And, we're playing for hours usually. It's really, really nice. And if it's not a game night, it's movie night. And again, we all choose kind of a movie that everybody wants to see. Obviously, it's a little bit different with a movie night because we're not talking as much, unless you're my son who's just a chatterbox throughout a movie. Um, but yeah, I really think that it's important to do these types of activities, play different games, um, get them out of their shells, let them be silly, because they will forget that, they shouldn't like you, or they should have a grudge up against you, or they should act a certain way, or they should have a wall up. They forget, and then they're just kids, and then they're just lovely to be around, and then it just gives you hope that you have something to work towards, right? But yeah, that's my biggest, I think, suggestion to all of you that are struggling like I am. Do these types of things. Don't get so caught up in the little things. Um, Focus on that, because I think that's the best way, or the easiest way, and definitely the funnest way to really start building that rapport and that connection with your stepkids, particularly when they're teens. Get them out of that comfort zone and let them just be kids. Let them forget. It helps. It helps a lot. Yeah. Validate, validate, validate. And I get this is hard for you, but it goes a long way. So constantly, constantly validate them. It's not always about correcting them. Sometimes they just need validation, right? To say that it's okay. Tag in your partner. Don't forget, you're not the only adult in the house. Let them take the lead when it's needed. And I mean, this is one thing that my partner and I are really good at, is we do lean on each other a lot, and I need him, and I am so happy that we are in this together, because we really are a partnership in this. Because he knows it's been hard on me. Um, and he's always there to support me and support, his kids, and really help find that common ground together. So he makes this a lot easier. He's just a great bridge because the kids love him and they respect him. And I think that really helps. Just seeing how supportive he is of all of us. There's not necessarily taking sides. I mean, sometimes it's like, you were wrong, and he'll be there to say that, to him or me. But I think they really do see that he loves us all and is there for us all. So make sure you're in it with your partner, that you're on the same page, and know, you're there to help each other. Drop the fantasy. Okay. You're not the fairy tale stepmom. You're the real one. And that's powerful. Like I said, I came into this thinking, this is like, it's going to be like a Brady Bunch, and everything is going to be great, and everybody's going to love me, and we're just going to be this like perfect family. So I did have this, in my head. And not to say that we're not, we are in a lot of ways. Like I said, we do have a really great family dynamic together. We do a lot as a family, but You're not going to be this wonderful fairy godmother that, the kids are just going to automatically love because you're just so wonderful. It's not going to be that easy, and it's okay. You just know that you are there, and as long as they know that you're there for them, that is what matters. You know, I mean, depending on the situation, you may even want to consider therapy or online groups, you know, people who get it, friends who get it. You may need just a space to vent without shame. And whether that's, as a family or just on your own. Hey, sometimes you just need it on your own. Sometimes it's not about you trying to fix everybody else and everything else. And sometimes that's me. It's like, I just want to fix everything and make everything great. Sometimes you just need to look after yourself. And it's okay to just vent about everything that's not going right. And yeah, give yourself that outlet. Find a friend, find a therapist, find a group, find a space that you need to just let it out. It's okay because it's not easy. And I think we're so afraid to talk about it. I think we're really afraid to tell people that we're not perfect and things are not perfect. But I'm trying. And I know you're trying, you know, but we're in this together. And remember that, you know, I'd love to hear about what you're going through and ways in which you're navigating, you know, this dynamic and this situation of being a stepmom to teens. Leave a comment, send me a message. Let me know your biggest challenges as a stepmother. What are you going through? Let me know. I'd love to continue this conversation for future episodes. It's not easy. And I think we do need to open up this conversation because I think a lot of us are scared to talk about it. We're scared to talk about not being the perfect mom or stepmom. You know, if ultimately, like, if I could go back and talk to myself before stepping into this role, here is what I would say to myself. Amanda, you will cry, and that's okay. There are times when you're going to feel invisible, but you're not. They see you. The kids might never call you mom, and that's okay. I don't expect that. I don't even think I expected it then. But just know that your presence matters. You are allowed to love them in your own way. And it's okay. It's not going to be exactly the same way as you love your kids. It might be over time, but just know that it's okay to modify and adjust that love in any way that you need and that they need. This isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up again and again, even when it's hard, and it will be hard. You know, you have to be there, especially when it's hard. That's when they need it the most. So, to all my stepmoms listening, just know I see you. I am you. And you're doing more than you think. You're not crazy. And you're definitely not alone, even though sometimes we feel that way. I know I do. Most importantly, you are not a failure. So stop being so hard on yourself. I know you're doing all that you can. I know I'm doing all that I can. And you just need to keep going, right? Just those baby steps. Compounded will eventually lead you to that connection, that bond that I know you crave, that I crave. Don't forget, you're a bonus parent, right? You're a backbone. You're a bridge. You're shaping a home, even when it doesn't always feel like one. Because let's be honest, sometimes it feels strained. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. It feels strained sometimes, but just know that you are there, keeping it together, making it a happy home for everyone. If this episode hit home, please share it. Tag another stepmom who needs to hear this and DM me your story. because I'd love to include some of your experiences in a follow-up episode. I want to thank you for tuning in to Live Life Fearlessly today. Until next time, show up, stand tall, and don't let anyone make you feel small. Until next time, keep living fearlessly, because you got this.